A Great Thinker Guide. Chapter 1. My Ideas on How I Think. How to Live and Think. Follow your true nature. It will lead you to truth for your life. Whatever your Creator God endowed you with, that's your truth. Your purpose in life is to discover whatever is original and inspired within yourself, then use it up every day for your own benefit, to invigorate yourself and to help other people somehow with these natural abilities you have. The system wants you to pick from among the options it offers, like the majors at college and the regular jobs out there at a young age, but a full, examined life doesn't work like that. You do what naturally interests you, then at some point in time, you intuitively feel what your life's purpose is. It's not about picking from the X number of career options the system offers you after you graduate from high school. It's about exploring your life until you find something that you really like to do that can earn you a living. The capitalist system wants you to declare a career path right away at 18 and get on with it. The result of this way of thinking is a lot of unhappy people who don't feel happy with their career or lives in general, simply because they're not doing much to release their inherent natural energy every day, which is what a great life is, constantly releasing your natural energy with joy for the process. This self-betrayal is the biggest cause of misery in the modern, Western world that almost no one is aware of or talks about. Just express what you feel in your soul. You need guts to do this in the cookie-cutter world we live in, where we're taught that a great life is imitating what we see on TV that's marketed to us as cool and successful. The truth is that cool is having the confidence to be who you really are, unbrainwashed by the world. Do not listen to the false, lying, useless knowledge geared to indoctrinate you like most of the so-called liberal arts, humanities, social science psychobabble out there, most of which was created in the past 50 years. I wonder how humanity managed to get along before all this fake knowledge came on the scene? Learn to separate fake knowledge from true wisdom, then develop a system to live by it. All you have to do every day when you wake up is to make a commitment to release most of your natural energy to match or exceed the inherent standard you should feel within yourself of who you were born to be and who you want to be. Life is lived like this, one day at a time. It's not like all the glitter and so-called glamour you see on TV all the time. Don't listen to the false idols and ideals of the world too much. Listen to your pure self. Freedom is expressing your free spirit to its fullest with love for the process. There are the artificial values of the world and your true nature. Most people live by the artificial values of the world, which causes a sense of disharmony somewhere within themselves, even if they are successful by the standards of the world. Use the knowledge of the world to better your life, but don't buy into anything beyond mathematics and the hard sciences without critically analyzing it. When they're trying to teach you culture in grade school or in college, be like me. I say that's somebody else's ideas, not mine, which is why I rarely listen to much of it. What I do listen to or watch on TV I mostly dismiss as minor, meaningless entertainment. Almost nothing out there intrigues me or inspires me. My inspiration is all inside of me, in my own thoughts and actions. Constantly contemplate your life and the state of the world. Analyze the situation, come to conclusions based on intuition and logic, then act on them. Logic by itself is not always right, the process of gathering all the facts then analyzing them to come to a rational conclusion. You have to factor in what your raw gut emotions tell you to do. Learn from mistakes and errors in judgment. Learn from knowledge that others have gathered and created before you. Don't judge others or compare yourself to them. Just worry about yourself and the fulfillment of your life's purpose through the release of your natural, inspired, aesthetic, loving, sensual energy. Unite with like-minded people to do things and make money if you find people who share your views. You can only live 1 hour at a time, which is why sorrow about the past or worries about the future don't mean anything. Life is always the challenge to release your natural energy to stay close to who you were born with the potential to be and want to be. If you don't live like this, you're just another generic spectator consumer. Listen to yourself purely. Don't get bound up in delusional fantasies about what others might think of you if you do something that gets you on TV or achieve something that the system gives you an award for. It doesn't matter what other people think of you. All that really matters is earning your own self-respect for you, not for anybody out there who you might give some control over you because you want their approval. Respect people who help you. Ignore the slovenly, gluttonous, selfish, greedy people as much as you can. The less you deal with them, the less they'll be able to exploit you or pollute your mind. Make no assumptions. Take nothing for granted. Create your life as you go along. Your purpose in life is to honor who you were born with, the potential to be for a purpose that goes beyond personal ambition to help others in some way. You can never fulfill yourself or reach a point where you're enlightened and have lots of money, and that's it, because the only truly enlightened people know they have to honor themselves every day by releasing most of their natural inspired energy one day at a time, and that's always hard, or at least challenging and stimulating. That's the only way to constantly earn your self-respect and feel good, do tough, challenging, inspiring, euphoric, joyful things. If you don't, you really have no life beyond being a generic consumer spectator, which might seem like fun according to the commercials on TV, always pushing you to buy more stuff and fill yourself up with more meaningless pop culture or entertainment, but your debt to the God who created you is to become the finest example of his handiwork as you can be. If you don't live like this, you're just another one of the dull, timid, scared, huddled masses without the guts to try to touch transcendence and perfect freedom with their lives. Peace of mind is when you're following your true nature, not trying to be something you're not as defined by the world. Happiness is not a behavior. It's a sense of self, a sense of wholeness and satisfaction. Follow your true nature and happiness will come on its own, without you trying to impose it upon yourself. You have to figure out what you love to do and do it all the time. It's the only way to live a relaxed, harmonious life. Don't complicate your life with the artificial ideas the world is trying to sell you. Listen to your true nature and live by it. You can live in the world without selling your soul to it. Some things you will never know the answers to for sure, like where did we come from, is there life after death, is there a God, are extraterrestrials visiting Earth, is there such a thing as ghosts, etc. So don't waste your life pondering them. Live in the moment. Deal with the hereafter when you die. Honor yourself because the spirit of life, aka your creator God, honored you by giving you life. Honor the world because God created it and it's all you got that you know for sure. Live with courage, not fear. The less news you watch or read, the less you allow the negativity of the world to invade your purity. I'm aware of what's going on in the world, but I only watch a few minutes of the news here and there once or twice a week. When you share knowledge, it can multiply. A little bit of knowledge can drastically improve someone's life. Experience in life as you live it, followed by an analysis of your experiences, is a better teacher than reading books or listening to others. If you're really ambitious, think that you were put on this earth by God for an important, specific, special purpose, to do something great to help humanity that only you can fulfill, and live that way, thinking and acting as though you have a great purpose and the world needs you to do it. To feel strong even when you're weak, never stop thinking like this. You are a servant of truth, knowledge, and wisdom to help yourself live a great life and help the world, hopefully with love for the human race in your heart, even though this could be difficult because every human being has been betrayed by other human beings at some point in time, which tends to make us cynical and give up on humanity. Personally, I think the only hope for the human race is genetic engineering, but I still continue to live with optimism simply because it enables me to live a good to great life regardless of how screwed up the world and the people are around me. I don't waste my time judging the shortcomings of the world or the follies people commit. I focus on releasing my natural energy in a positive, intense way to give me feelings of joy and fulfillment. I'm open to the good stuff out in the world, but I ignore the negativity as much as I can. When you help others, you help yourself because it makes you feel good and they might show you some gratitude by doing nice things for you. As long as you're true to yourself by trying to honor whatever is natural inside of you, you're never wrong. You're always on the right path doing the right thing. Your friends are people like you who are trying to live positive, great lives. I try to minimize contact with generic people. I have nothing in common with them. I don't want them polluting me with their meaningless, frivolous bullshit about sports scores, celebrity gossip, the next pop idol or top model, fashion, materialism, good-tasting junk food, internet chatter, YouTube videos, computer games, the so-called mainstream news, the politics of the two main parties to the exclusion of everyone else, etc. Aimless people who don't do anything much beyond consume things and watch pop culture entertainment are confused and out of harmony with themselves on a deep level, because in order to be happy, you have to be purposeful and proud that you're releasing your natural energy all the time. If you don't constantly release your natural energy, your sense of self-betrayal shoots way up and you intuitively feel you're dishonoring yourself. This is the only real freedom, to try to do what you intuitively feel you were born to do with passion and gusto for the process. Treat your life with reverence. Be bold enough to strive to live a glorious life. Love this life the Creator God gave you. Live a relaxed life following your true nature. You cannot win against the powerful marketing forces of the capitalist pop culture machine. It controls the minds and souls of most people. The world's forces, meaning the corporate industrial infrastructure, want you to be a good obedient worker clone who takes his paycheck and pacifies himself by buying lots of material things he doesn't need and filling his mind up with meaningless pop culture entertainment. That's the perfect citizen to them, the passive consumer spectator who always wants more useless junk. The best you can do is stay pure within yourself and find a handful of friends and allies to be your kindred spirits. Everyone else has been massively polluted by the artificial values of the world. The funny thing is that they look down on you because they think you're weird for not playing the game of the world like them, which they think is the cool, successful way to be. They follow what they see on TV and parrot it. Figure out a way to earn a living by doing something you love to do anyway. That's a part of your true nature that can help people in some way. Serve the truth, which is what you intuitively feel with yourself. You are nothing more or less than who your Creator God made you to be by nature. All you have to do is honor it without sacrificing your life to the artificial values of the world system. How to learn anything? Learning is active and creative. After you learn something for the first time, you have to revisit that material and think about it at least several times. It takes time. You have to be actively engaged in it. Be interested in the subject matter. Be creative. Think about it. It's motivation, inspiration, and repetition. Mull it through. Play with it. Think about it. Be energetic, emotional, and enthusiastic about it. Don't be stressed out. Learning takes a relaxed, peaceful mind. If I had important material to learn, I thought about it while I walked or jogged. Be a great thinker. A great thinker steps outside of himself, his or her self-centered egocentricity, to see life and the world objectively as both a rational and compassionate thinker. A rational thinker gathers as many facts as he can about any situation, not opinion. He or she gathers cold, hard scientific, objective facts from the only real hardcore objective subjects, math and science, and what actually happened in a situation. Social science theory or social science expert opinion should not count in being a great thinker simply because they're all full of crap, hiding behind those nutty theories they created like a bunch of clones pretending to be experts. Do you believe in some lurid hidden entity within yourself called the subconscious mind? Isn't the subconscious mind simply your long-term memory? It takes some effort to retrieve past memories, not because you are repressed but because the human brain has limited retrieval capabilities. What about economists? Get 10 knuckleheads in a room. They will give you 10 different answers on how to heal the economy, all of them wrong, their answers as valid as any knucklehead on the street. Never believe any so-called expert in any social science field blindly. Listen to what they say, then make your own decision. If you come across a so-called social science expert, first take a look at them. Does the person look like they are trying to live a vital, inspired life? Most of these people are so brainwashed by the theories in their field that they cannot see plain, common sense truth. They will always try to protect their field of study even if it's full of crap. Once you gather your facts, think about them, then make the best decision you can with the facts you got. You can make one decision based on logic alone. Is this the best thing to do? Make a second decision based on emotion. What is the best course of action to cause the least amount of injury, pain, and damage to the most people possible or lead to the greatest amount of happiness in the most people possible? In World War II, they had to make hard decisions. They knew they were sending most pilots to their deaths, but they didn't tell them that. The bigger picture was to win the war. The only way to do it was high casualty numbers, at least at first. We, the Allies, had to kill off the enemy by sacrificing our own pilots while putting a stranglehold around the Axis countries so that over time, they had no pilots or planes left while we kept sending pilots and planes, mostly from the United States. In this situation, a compassionate man never would have sent thousands of pilots off to die, but a rational man knew he had to win the war by sending many pilots out there until they gradually killed off the Nazi pilots. Which one is right? The general who says we have to win the war even if it costs 200,000 American lives, or the compassionate guy who says let's try other ways to win the war, like cut off their oil and use cunning tactics like go up through Spain and cut France in two, thus making it easy to pick off the Nazis in the West cut off from their supply lines? The Normandy invasion was crazy. There must have been an easier way to invade Europe. I don't have all the facts in the situation. Whoever made those decisions must have either known something I don't know or were cold-hearted in their ambition to win the war. I think the Normandy invasion was the stupidest decision ever made in modern times by someone with power. They picked the most heavily mined, heavily fortified area in the whole world. There were 100 other easier ways to win the war. A truly wise man would not have made a decision to attack the enemy head-on at their strongest point because it was not necessary to sacrifice all those lives. A great thinker always does what's right to help the most people he or she can, even if it goes against what big business interests want or big hots with big egos who want to be in the limelight. Southern France was a big beach. They could have waltzed into there and walked to Paris with no resistance. Italy, Holland, Belgium, Denmark, and Greece were all cakewalks by then. Britain controlled Gibraltar. Spain's new dictator Carlos would have wanted to ally with the future winners of the war, which everyone knew was the Allies, because it was Germany against the world. There is no way Germany could defeat multi-millions of possible soldiers and equipment from India, Africa, Canada, Australia, Jamaica, etc. Normandy was the most fortified piece of real estate in the whole world at the time. The Allied generals went in with guns a-blazing to a tremendous loss of life. It looked good in the newsreels because they got into France, but it was really a tragedy. All those young men died for some general's vanity. What would a great thinker do in that situation? If you were in the war room when George W. Bush decided to attack Iraq as portrayed in the movie W, what would you have said? Would you have agreed with the warmongers and cast a positive vote, or would you have told the truth, which is that if we create 100% of our energy needs ourselves, we don't need to mess around over there, so why not spend all that war money building alternative energy machines? Let's say you were the president of your country. The country has not been attacked by foreign invaders in hundreds of years, yet they spend billions of dollars on the military every year. This is Canada. The United States had only one attack at Pearl Harbor as far as I know. In Costa Rica, they got rid of their military to spend that money on social programs. That is what a great thinker would do. We elect leaders that cannot think greatly, therefore cannot make great decisions that will help lots of people live better lives. We elect leaders from supposedly liberal-thinking political parties who help big business interests over helping the people and never breathe a word about why we have a military force at all, considering we have no enemies lurking at our borders. All great thinkers see tragedies every day. It would be so easy to solve our problems and be prosperous, but great thinkers in general are people not willing to sell their souls to get political power, so the end result is a great tragedy everywhere, because vain people sell their souls to get political power, then do anything to stay there, which includes trampling over the people who need their help the most. Who is an experimental learner? An experimental learner is some naive kid that wants to learn the answers to life. Science and spirit / logic and emotions / intuition / left vs. right brain. I don't believe in making anyone a heroic idol. I don't believe the myth of Albert Einstein as a genius. He worked in a patent office. I'm sure he borrowed some ideas from there, just like Marconi and Edison ripped Nikola Tesla off. Anyway, the story is that there are all kinds of quotes attributed to Einstein saying that when you discover this natural, intuitive creative force, spirit, or voice inside of you, that's when you're really enlightened. Most people can learn logic, how to strip any situation down to its facts, then make a decision based on facts only. It's this incubation, spiritual thing going on in the brain that you come to insights like when I walk for a while. Solutions come up to what I'm currently dealing with. Your thoughts create you. You become what you think and do day after day. The way you think is the way you live. Regardless of how desperate life is, you determine how you deal with it. Consciousness is the life force. Stress is bad. Don't obsess over anything. In the book of Ecclesiastes in the Bible, Solomon says it's not wise to think, analyze, and ponder on anything too much. You can't solve the world's problems, so don't destroy yourself thinking about them too much. Your brain chemistry is determined by what you eat and how active you are. The strongest people listen to their own standard given by God. They don't buy into the world's BS. Meditation is simply being peaceful, listening to yourself. The subconscious mind is a fraud for those phony people called therapists to make money. I am who I am right here, right now. We become what we think and do. BrainConnection.com. Chapter 2. Be a great thinker. It's easy. Think. The Golden Rule of Enlightenment / How to be a Great Thinker. The Golden Rule of Enlightenment is to know that you have a purity, essence, and soul given to you by your Creator God when you were born. This soul has innate wisdom within it of who you want to be, what you should and how you should live. You will get brainwashed by the artificial values of the world. It is pretty well impossible not to in a capitalist, pop culture world where the mass media is blaring other people's ideas at you all the time. Granted, grade school and other formal schooling is good to help give you a basic ability to make your way in the world, but they are indoctrinating forces too. If you are one of the few people who ends up enlightened, you gradually get over all of your cultural indoctrination to realize you stand alone in the world as an autonomous, independent thinker. You think your own thoughts and act on them. Your wisdom and intelligence comes from 3 sources. 1. The innate wisdom you were born with. 2. Experience in the world followed by analysis of it. 3. Reading books, watching TV, going to school, etc., all filtered by your autonomous sense of wisdom. You don't give your mind up to any false idols and lies out there for sale in society. You do not buy into the lie that is the linchpin of modern psychology, the idea that you have a subconscious mind, a part of you hidden away from your conscious thoughts that guides you without you knowing it. There is nothing mysterious guiding you that you don't know about. Your consciousness right this very minute is your reality. Your entire store of knowledge is in your long-term memory. You retrieve it by thinking about it. It's not hidden, mysterious knowledge with motives of its own. It's your life knowledge. You control it by what you retrieve out of it. That's it. Don't buy into what society defines as knowledge and wisdom in the so-called social science subjects. You are a clear thinker. You know your own identity. You know where your own thoughts start and where the world's agenda tries to get its hooks into you, which never happens because you easily pick apart all attempts by people, organizations, advertisers, institutions, and other entities trying to manipulate your thoughts. You know what the absolute rules of morality are, what you must do not just to avoid arrest but to respect all life other than your own. Your purpose is to honor your true nature, which is your soul, by releasing most of the natural energy in it every day. You always have the vision of who you were born to be in your mind's eye, which you fulfill every day, one day at a time, by releasing most of your natural energy to that end. Enlightened people spend most of their time thinking their own thoughts, focusing on their purpose and acting on it. I spend some time listening to the radio and watching TV pretty well every day, but it's minor background stuff to me which I do while I'm engaged in other activities. I like a good laugh on gag and prank shows. I don't want to deal with all that mainstream news crap where they're telling us the world is going to hell in a handbasket every day, so I don't watch it much. If I'm up, I'll watch the first minute of CNN's headline show at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. That's their big hour. They always talk about whatever is happening right now. Most of the time I turn the channel after I check it out. I read that the average young person spends 11.7 hours a day tapped into some manner of mass media. Where is the time for exploring their own lives by thinking their own thoughts to see where it leads them? No wonder we live in a society of massively indoctrinated lost souls. If you replace your own personal truth with the truth that MTV is feeding you, it ends up in a great tragedy. Some brainwashed chick trying to act like chicks in music videos or guys trying to act like rockers complete with chemical addictions. Question everything until you realize every institution and every person are potentially corrupt, then simply go along and live your life immune to the BS of the world. When you're enlightened, everything you do comes down to being true to your soul. There are no really hard decisions to make. You just live every day true to yourself by releasing most of the natural energy in your free spirit. Be compassionate and kind to others, especially weak people and the less fortunate. A noble person helps others. You should have no need for status or recognition in the community. You shouldn't care what other people think of you or if they think of you at all. You should not seek fame for its own sake. You don't need it. Your happiness and self-worth is already inside of you. Just do what you feel is right by the power in your soul. The past means nothing. Don't be nostalgic for it or blame your failings on it. Know within yourself that you are powerful and have great ideas to help the world, even if the world is too stupid to listen to you. Many great people were ahead of their time. After they died, their ideas were adopted. We live in a world where a few forces control most of the power and they don't want to let anyone else in, even if they have good ideas. Most people learn from the belief system of their society, then stick with it for life even though it's stupid to an outsider. We think it's stupid for Hindus to worship some of their weird-looking gods, but we do the same things as Christians, Mary, Jesus, the 12 apostles, etc. The mind is free only to the extent that it is in command of itself. The world really is fucked. Most people are massively brainwashed even though no one will ever admit to it. Get a bunch of good songs for your MP3 player, move, take action, don't stop, dance to the pulse of your life, purge the music in your soul. If you do this, you will live the best life you possibly can. Natural enthusiasm is the key to learning. Natural enthusiasm beats all the psychobabble and the programs and workshops they come up with, subject to the child's creative intellectual limits. Love learning and you'll go as far as you can go at it. Learning was a natural part of my true nature. I couldn't understand the guys who tried to act like they didn't like school or that it was cool to disrespect what we did in class. If you want to be a great student and scholar, don't focus on tests, marks, facts, and assignments. Focus on your intrinsic love for the subject matter. I do what I love because it's fun and interesting to me. I learn because it helps make me the champion of my life, and it makes me feel good every day when I create books like this one. These two activities earn me some self-respect and make me feel good every day. If the kid is not naturally intellectually curious and expressing his creative ideas by 5 years old, get some books and start taking him to the library every 2 weeks. It should be an interesting place for him, to look through all those books there in the children's section. When life is a big, fun adventure, people will learn anything easily relative to their cognitive limits. Scientists do a bunch of experiments like 1. Brain scans on people to track which parts of the brain light up using functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI. 2. Neuroimaging to track dopamine and endorphin release. They get people to do a bunch of different mental activities, then observe the brain scans to see what happens in the brain. The results are that there is greater brain activity and dopamine release when subjects/students are playing, laughing, writing, mastering and participating in high-interest activities. To learn dull stuff, dress it up, make it fun and challenging to learn it. Why do I remember grammar rules I learned in grade 3? Because I loved learning. Nothing was dull to me at that age. It was all a big fun adventure. Nikola Tesla, an example of an original thinking genius. Nikola Tesla was a great thinker with his own ideas about harnessing electrical and magnetic power. He was true to his nature and lived by the power he felt within himself. I believe everybody has something original and inspired within themselves that they were born with, but it's brainwashed out of most of us as we're taught to try to succeed by going to college to get a dull job within the conventional establishment. If you want to see how a creative thinking intellectual thinks, which might inspire you to seek out and discover the original, inspired power within yourself, read articles and books by and about Tesla at bibliotecapeliads.net. Go to the Index by Areas section. Click on the Researchers section. Click on Tesla, Nikola. pbs.org/Tesla. tfcbooks.com. amazing1.com/tesla.hdm. Nikola Tesla's amazing mind. Tesla's mind always seemed to be under an explosive pressure. An avalanche of ideas was forever straining for release. The following article goes from about page 220 to 232 in Prodigal Genius, The Life of Nikola Tesla, by John J. O'Neill, July 1944. The memory departments of most individuals' brains are like OFS filing systems, an excellent dumping ground for everything that comes along, but try to find a filed item later. Tesla's powers of memorizing were prodigious. A quick reading of a page gave him a permanent record of it. He could always recall before his eyes a photographic record of it to be read and could study at his convenience. Study, for Tesla, was a far different process than for the average person. He had no need for a reference library. He could consult in his mind any page of any textbook he had read, any formula, equation, or item in a table of logarithms, and it would flash before his eyes. He could recite scores of books, complete from memory. The saving in time which this made possible in research work was tremendous. This strange faculty of vision was supernormal but entirely natural, and was due, probably, to a structural characteristic in his brain which provided a direct channel between the memory and the visual areas of his cerebral hemispheres. It provided him with a very useful new sense. The human brain is made up of two sections, the right and left sides, each of which, in some of its phases, is a complete brain, and both halves function together as a single unit. There are many layers in the brain parallel with its surface, each connected to the others by complex nerve fibers, like threads sewing together the layers of an onion. The outer layer seems to be directly associated with our consciousness. The surface is divided into specialized areas. There is a band across the midsection of each hemisphere from ear to ear over the top of the brain, devoted to the senses, and here are separate areas for the sensory faculties: sight, hearing, taste, smell, while nearby are regions for the motor or muscular activities of the various parts of the body. The back lobe of the brain appears to be the home of the memory, and the front lobe of some higher faculties of integration, the nature of which we do not as yet understand. In normal processes of seeing, the eye forms a picture of an object on the retina, a screen on the back of the eyeball. The retina is supplied with thousands of nerve endings, all packed together like stalks of asparagus in a bunch. The tip ends are provided with photosensitive processes, and when light strikes any one of them, it transmits over the optic nerve a signal to the brain, which is recorded as a visual response in the sight area of each half of the brain. By cooperation of all the nerve endings, the complete picture seen is transmitted. The actual seeing, then, is done in the brain and not in the eye. When an object is seen by the brain, a record of that visual experience is transmitted from the sight area of the brain to the memory center in the back part of the brain, and similar records are sent by all other sensory centers. Ordinarily this is a one-way process, the stimuli going in the direction of the memory and nothing coming back to the sensory area. If this were not so, our sense areas of the brain would be continuously reenacting old experiences and mixing them with the new, incoming experiences, causing annoying confusion. The memory area contains a complete record of all sensory experiences we have had. In our thinking processes we use some little understood mechanism for connecting together items stored in the memory area to produce useful combinations or relationships, or, in other words, new ideas. The memory appears to function on a subconscious level, but we seem to be able to activate fibers that reach down to the desired strata at the right point to connect the memory level with the consciousness level. In this way we can recall experiences, but this experience of memory is far different from the original experience of sight out of which the original memory record was made. If, however, in this process of recollection, the nerve fiber linking the sight area of the brain and the memory area were to be activated, then we would see again by the sharp processes of vision the object which caused the memory record we are trying to recollect. The act of creative thinking seems to consist of assembling two or more memory records of sensory experiences into a combination which possesses entirely new characteristics that were not apparent in the component parts. If the nerve linkage just referred to were to operate in a two-way process with the visual area, then we would be able to see the new creation as if it were a really existing object seen by the eye, although the whole operation was limited to the brain. This process is hypothetically the one which took place in Tesla's brain and gave him tremendously greater powers of creative work than are possible to the ordinary individual. Was this conceivably a new invention made by Mother Nature and tried out by her on Tesla? Tesla himself never understood the neurological, or physiological, processes underlying this strange faculty. To him it was an absolutely real experience to see in front of him as solid objects the subjects of his creative thoughts. He believed that the image of the thing he saw was sent back from the brain along the optic nerve to the eye and that it existed as a picture on the retina where, by some suitable means, it could be seen by others, or that by means of adequate amplifying devices, such as are used in television, it could be projected on a screen. He even proposed such devices. The apparent flaw in his reasoning followed on his mistake in thinking that he was doing this supernormal seeing with his eye, whereas the process was confined to his brain, and the reflex action from the memory centers stopped at the visual centers instead of, as he believed, being continued forward through the optical nerve to the retina. Tesla described his experience with this strange faculty in an interview with M.K. Weishart, published under the title Making Your Imagination Work for You in the American Magazine, April, 1921. He stated, "During my boyhood I had suffered from a peculiar affliction due to the appearance of images, which were often accompanied by strong flashes of light. When a word was spoken, the image of the object designated would present itself so vividly to my vision that I could not tell whether what I saw was real or not. Even though I reached out and passed my hand through it, the image would remain fixed in space. In trying to free myself from these tormenting appearances, I tried to concentrate my thoughts on some peaceful, quieting scene I had witnessed. This would give me momentary relief, but when I had done it 2 or 3 times the remedy would begin to lose its force. Then I began to take mental excursions beyond the small world of my actual knowledge. Day and night, in imagination, I went on journeys, saw new places, cities, countries, and all the time I tried hard to make these imaginary things very sharp and clear in my mind. I imagined myself living in countries I had never seen, and I made imaginary friends, who were very dear to me and really seemed alive. This I did constantly until I was 17, when my thoughts turned seriously to invention. Then, to my delight, I found I could visualize with the greatest facility. I needed no models, drawings, or experiments. I could picture them all in my mind. By that faculty of visualizing, which I learned in my boyish efforts to rid myself of annoying images, I have evolved what is, I believe, a new method of materializing inventive ideas and conceptions. It is a method which may be of great usefulness to any imaginative man, whether he is an inventor, businessman, or artist. Some people, the moment they have a device to construct or any piece of work to perform, rush at it without adequate preparation and immediately become engrossed in details, instead of the central idea. They may get results, but they sacrifice quality. Here, in brief, is my own method. After experiencing a desire to invent a particular thing, I may go on for months or years with the idea in the back of my head. Whenever I feel like it, I roam around in my imagination and think about the problem without any deliberate concentration. This is a period of incubation. Then follows a period of direct effort. I choose carefully the possible solutions of the problem. I am considering and gradually center my mind on a narrowed field of investigation. Now, when I am deliberately thinking of the problem in its specific features, I may begin to feel that I am going to get the solution. And the wonderful thing is, that if I do feel this way, then I know I have really solved the problem and shall get what I am after. The feeling is as convincing to me as though I already had solved it. I have come to the conclusion that at this stage the actual solution is in my mind subconsciously, though it may be a long time before I am aware of it consciously. Before I put a sketch on paper, the whole idea is worked out mentally. In my mind I change the construction, make improvements, and even operate the device. Without ever having drawn a sketch I can give the measurements of all parts to workmen, and when completed all these parts will fit, just as certainly as though I had made the actual drawings. It is immaterial to me whether I run my machine in my mind or test it in my shop. The inventions I have conceived in this way have always worked. In 30 years there has not been a single exception. My first electric motor, the vacuum tube wireless light, my turbine engine and many other devices have all been developed in exactly this way. That Tesla believed his mental visualizations brought images from his brain to the back of his eye is indicated by some statements he made in his famous lecture before the National Electric Light Association convention at St. Louis, in March 1893, when announcing his discovery of radio. These statements about vision had no relationship to the subject of the lecture, and the fact that he interjected them indicated that his experiences with this strange power had a powerful influence on his inventive thinking. He said, "It can be taken as a fact, which the theory of the action of the eye implies, that for each external impression, that is for each image produced on the retina, the ends of the visual nerves, concerned in the conveyance of the impressions to the mind, must be under a peculiar stress or in a vibratory state. It now does not seem improbable that, when by the power of thought an image is evoked, a distinct reflex action, no matter how weak, is exerted upon certain ends of the visual nerves and therefore upon the retina. Will it ever be within human power to analyze the condition of the retina, when disturbed by thought or reflex action, by the help of some optical or other means of such sensitiveness that a clear idea of its state might be obtained? If this were possible, then the problem of reading one's thoughts with precision, like the characters of an open book, might be much easier to solve than many problems belonging to the domain of positive physical science, in the solution of which many, if not the majority, of scientific men implicitly believe. Helmholtz has shown that the fundi of the eye are themselves luminous, and he was able to see in total darkness the movements of his arm by the light of his own eyes. This is one of the most remarkable experiments recorded in the history of science, and probably only a few men could satisfactorily repeat it, for it is very likely that the luminosity of the eyes is associated with uncommon activity of the brain and great imaginative power. It is fluorescence of brain action, as it were. Another fact having a bearing on this subject, which has probably been noted by many, since it is stated in popular expressions, but which I cannot recollect to have found chronicled as a positive result of observation, is that, at times, when a sudden idea or image presents itself to the intellect, there is a painful sensation of luminosity produced in the eye observed even in broad daylight. 40 years later Tesla was still interested in the possibility of capturing a photographic record of thoughts. He stated in interviews that if his theory were correct that thoughts are recorded on the retina, it should be possible to photograph what is revealed on this screen in the eye and project enlarged images of it. There is nothing illogical about Tesla's reasoning concerning his strange faculty of visualizing and the possibility of finding a corresponding image on the retina. There is a bare possibility that in an extreme case, as was his, a reflex arc may have extended from the brain to the retina, but the probability that it did not is stronger. If he had possessed the ability to take others into his confidence in his experiments, he would have been able to stage some simple tests in the laboratory of an ophthalmologist which would have given him some definite experimental evidence to support or dispose of his theories, as far as photographic thought images were concerned. About 1920 Tesla had prepared, although he never published, an announcement of what he declared was an astounding discovery. It involved factors which he called cosmic, but it likewise presented situations which the practitioners of voodoo in Haiti and other intellectually unveneered portions of the human race would receive with perfect understanding. Since Tesla, one of the most highly civilized individuals, could evolve this conception, it is probable that other supercultured individuals or groups could find it in harmony with their ideas and experiences. It involves, however, a situation in which the soulless matter and energy automaton, to which status we have seen Tesla relegate human beings, is able to judge ethical values, and, like a pontiff presiding over a court of morals, inflict punishment for transgressions. Here is Tesla's description of his astounding discovery. While I have failed to obtain any evidence in support of the contentions of psychologists and spiritualists, I have proved to my complete satisfaction the automatism of life, not only through continuous observation of individual actions, but even more conclusively, through certain generalizations. These amount to a discovery which I consider of the greatest moment to human society and on which I shall briefly dwell. I got the first inkling of this astounding truth when I was still a very young man, but for many years I interpreted what I noted simply as coincidences. Namely, whenever either myself or a person to whom I was attached, or a cause to which I was devoted, was hurt by others in a particular way, which might be best popularly characterized as the most unfair imaginable, I experienced a singular and undefinable pain which, for want of a better term, I have qualified as cosmic, and shortly thereafter and invariably, those who have inflicted it came to grief. After many such cases I confided this to a number of friends, who had the opportunity to convince themselves of the truth of the theory which I have gradually formulated and which may be stated in the following words. Our bodies are of similar construction and exposed to the same external influences. This results in likeness of response and concordance of the general activities on which all our social and other rules and laws are based. We are automata entirely controlled by the forces of the medium, being tossed about like corks on the surface of the water, but mistaking the resultant of the impulses from the outside for free will. The movements and other actions we perform are always life-preservative, and though seemingly quite independent from one another, we are connected by invisible links. So long as the organism is in perfect order, it responds accurately to the agents that prompt it, but the moment there is some derangement in any individual, his self-preservative power is impaired. Everybody understands, of course, that if one becomes deaf, has his eyesight weakened, or his limbs injured, the chances for his continued existence are lessened. But this is also true, and perhaps more so, of certain defects in the brain which deprive the automaton, more or less, of that vital quality and cause it to rush into destruction. A very sensitive and observant being, with his highly developed mechanism all intact and acting with precision in obedience to the changing conditions of the environment, is endowed with a transcending mechanical sense, enabling him to evade perils too subtle to be directly perceived. When he comes in contact with others whose controlling organs are radically faulty, the sense asserts itself and he feels the cosmic pain. The truth of this has been borne out in hundreds of instances, and I am inviting other students of nature to devote attention to this subject, believing that, through combined and systematic effort, results of incalculable value to the world will be attained. Tesla's uncommunicative nature concerning his own intimate experiences has undoubtedly deprived the world of many interesting stories. He was unquestionably an abnormal individual and of a type that does have what are known as psychic experiences. He was emphatic in his denial that he ever had experiences of that sort, yet he has related incidents that clearly belong in the psychic category. He seemed to be fearful that an admission of psychic experiences would cause him to be misunderstood as supporting spiritualism, or theories that something operates in life other than matter and energy. Whenever he was asked for his philosophy of life, he would elaborate a theory that the human body is a meat machine which responds to external forces. One evening in New York, as Tesla and the author sat in the lobby of the Hotel Governor Clinton, the inventor discussed his meat machine theory. It was a materialistic philosophy typical of the Victorian era. We are, he held, composed of only those things which are identified in the test tube and weighed in the balance. We have only those properties which we receive from the atoms of which our bodies are constructed. Our experiences, which we call life, are a complex mixture of the responses of our component atoms to the external forces of our environment. Such a philosophy has the virtue of simplicity and brevity of presentation, and it lends itself readily to being propounded with a positiveness that reacts on the propounder and transforms his attitude into one of dogmatism, in which emphatically expressed opinion is often confused with and substituted for factual evidence. "I don't believe a word of your theory," I replied to Tesla's exposition, "and, thank God, I am convinced you don't believe a word of it either. The strongest proof I have that your theory is totally inadequate is that Tesla exists. Under your theory we could not have a Tesla. Tesla possesses a creative mind and, in his accomplishments, stands high above all other men. If your theory were correct, we would either all be geniuses like Tesla or we would all be mental mediocrities living in these meat machines you describe, all responding in the same way to the uniform, inanimate and uncreative external forces." "But we are all meat machines," replied Tesla, "and it happens that I am a much more sensitive machine than other people, and I receive impressions to which they are inert, and I can both understand and interpret these impressions. I am simply a finer automaton than others," he insisted. "This difference, which you admit between yourself and others, Dr. Tesla, completely disproves your theory, from my viewpoint," I responded. "Your sensitiveness would be a purely random incident. In the integration of this randomness, with respect to all individuals, all of us would probably once, possibly very much more frequently, rise to the height of manifesting genius as you have done all your life. Even though the strokes of genius would manifest intermittently, all such individuals would receive the permanent rating as geniuses. Genius does not manifest, even intermittently, in all of us, so your meat machine theory appears, to me, untenable. If you were really frank with me, you would tell me of many experiences you have had, strange experiences, that you could not explain, that do not fit into your meat machine theory, and which you have been afraid to discuss with anyone for fear they would misunderstand you and perhaps ridicule you. I, however, will not find these experiences strange and beyond understanding, and one of these days you will open up and tell me about them." As happened whenever I disagreed with him, after that evening I did not see Tesla for a while. In due time, however, I had a great many telephone conversations with him. Our discussion seemed to have brought about a change in his attitude toward me, and the next time I saw him he confided, "Mr. O'Neill, you understand me better than anyone else in the world." I mention this to indicate the correctness of my belief that there was another Tesla hidden within that synthetic individual, the Superman, which Tesla sought to pass off on the public as his real self. I did not, at this time, know about Tesla's astounding discovery, or of some of his experiences about which I later learned. Had I known of these, my discussion with him could have been more specific.